Hello, today we're going to take a look at the WBG Core. So let me go ahead and load up my Unity. One of the things that I noticed on the version that I had, I was missing a splash screen, so I'm assuming that there's some possibly missing things here. So I have this sample project that I created, and I'm using 2019, so it's important that our versions match. So if you have Unity, you want to make sure that you have the 2019. If you have a newer version, that's fine. I think I can upgrade. I'm just waiting to update though until the new multiplayer update was released, and that's supposed to be coming late summer. But if you have the latest version, that's fine. I can update mine as well. It shouldn't break too much stuff. All right, so this is the core system as it looks. So anytime that we want to export um, a Unity project or its stuff, we're going to come up here. We're going to come up to Assets and Export Project. So this is what we're going to do. So I want everything in this project because everything is just perfect, perfectly broken probably. But it'll work for a start. So this is, I'm going to export this as 10 because I noticed in 9 was missing splash. I don't know what that's about. So maybe I've had some updates since then. So I want this version that I know seems to be working. And then just to test it one more quickly, we're going to go into Splash. I hear the sound. And I'm right into the login screen. Now I'm going to get an error because I don't have a main menu. I'm trying to log in here. There's usually not this much of a delay. I'm going to get a connection issue. Okay. That one I know what that one is as well. So that's no problem. We'll address that in just a second. So we're going to get out of this project. I'm just going to save the changes. We're going to reopen another Unity screen. Again, you won't have to do any of this stuff because I'll just send you the package. But you will have to have, I would suggest you start out with a sample package just to play around with the core system at first so you can kind of get comfortable with it before you start actually putting this on a live version because there is a lot of moving parts to this. So first thing you'll want to do, and this is very important, it's a small step, but it's something we'll always have to do. Because the loading screen is always trying to go to main underscore menu when you log in, your main menu should always be named main underscore menu. So just like this one is right here. So that's just step one. Just rename your sample scene, every time you start a new project. So in order to get all the WBG core system imported very easily, we're going to go up here to import package and custom package. And then I will send you this package directly. It'll be the version 10 or whatever the latest version is. It looks like we have some major differences between these two. So I'm glad I did make that new version. So we're going to go ahead and just open this. And again, this is a template just for you to start out. This is how all of our games should look. If you find bugs, no problem. Just create a new version and we'll go off of that. So I want everything here and I'm going to import it. This is going to take a few seconds to import. And then as I mentioned before, we just kind of want to run through, test stuff, kind of kick the tires, make sure stuff's working. Okay, I see it was missing the inventory system and 1.9 or 1.1. So that's pretty important too. We're going to go over all this stuff briefly, and then I'm going to give you a second tutorial on the in-depth stuff. That's beyond Unity that goes into the DLLs, the API, and the SQL. So this is just the general overview of the Unity portion, and we'll go into the more advanced stuff in the next tutorial. So right now we have our scenes for our game. What I would like to do, or what I generally like to do, is I just like to create a folder, probably call it game. So I have my game folder in here, and then I'm just going to throw that in there. And then my WBG stuff probably needs to go in there. Let me just collapse this. That way we have a separation. So you have your core stuff here, and then your game is actually here. And then the way I like to organize my projects is all my scenes are in one place. All my scripts are in one place. All my audio is in one place. Everything's just kind of like in one area, in one folder. You just kind of pull from it what you need when you need it. So let's go ahead and just take a look at what we got here. So next thing we need to do in order to actually get this to work, we need to go into our build settings. And it looks like it might have already added all this for us. If you don't have this, what you want to do is just Control A, come up here to your build settings, and then just re-import everything. So I'm just going to drag and drop. So in case I might have been missing any scenes, now they've been added. So, and I want my splash screen. Again, it's very important that your splash screen is always the first. The rest of them doesn't matter, that the splash screen is going to redirect to the login screen. I don't go by the enums. I don't use the enum. I use a different way of doing my screen management. It's a little bit easier, and I'll show you that as well. So let's go ahead and go to our splash screen, because that's going to be our first screen. And I'm pretty sure this is going to give us an error on the login, because I think it's set the local host and not the live server. So that's why we're going to get an error. But let's just double check, make sure everything's working-ish. Make sure it's kind of working out of the box a little bit here. Again, we know we're going to get an error, and I'll show you how to fix that. Okay, so this is a connection error. You'll see this in live production apps when the server is down. This is what the users will get when they try to connect and the server is down. In this case, it's trying to connect the local host, so the problem is on our side. So it's an easy enough to fix, though, and you're going to get, socket actively refused. Whatever, not a big deal. So to fix that, we're going to come in here to the WBG scripts, and we're going to scroll down, and we're looking for a WBG config. And this is kind of like, if you've ever done web development, just think of like web config or an app config if you're doing desktop configuration. This is just a configuration file. Essentially for the core systems and your app systems. Like, I like to use it a lot for that. So we're going to see some stuff here. It's already kind of preset up. This product name is not right. So I'm going to just X that out for the second. And I'll show you some other ways to do this, because this system's a little bit outdated. It looks like we don't do this stuff anymore this way. We do it a little bit slightly differently, but nevertheless, a lot of this still applies. So let's just start with the basics. So our connection string is set to localhost. Well, in order for that to work, we'd have to be running the API locally. And I'm not doing that currently, so I'm just going to cut, X that out, and paste it back over here. So now I can connect to the live server. I'm not doing anything. I'm just testing the core app just to simply make sure this stuff is working. So I want to save those changes. I'm going to go ahead and restart the app. And a real quick note, if you don't have Unity for Visual Studio plugin, you'll want to get that. There's a tutorial on how to set that up. But that's just going to be pretty much something, it's a one-time setup thing, but you have to have it, like, so you can use Visual Studio. Otherwise, you'll be using Mono Develop, and I don't recommend that. I mean, if that's what works for you, great, but I don't do that. So you'll be kind of on your own with that, because everything we do uses Visual Studio. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. All right, got exactly what I expected. We got that blank screen because the menu is not set up. So we'll go ahead and exit out. Let's just go ahead and kick the tires a little bit further. You know, because there's some other things that we can navigate to. So let's go to account recovery. Let's just kind of click around in here. Okay, this is working. Let's see if the back button works. That works. Recovery seems to be working. Contact support seems to be pulling from the database. This list pulls from the database. That's good. This stuff is working. That's working. Let's just look at create account. Create account seems to be working. All right, so everything appears to be working. The exit button will not work in Unity because that's application quit and you're in the editor, so it won't work. But in a live build app, it would work, but we're in the editor, so it's not going to work. All right, so we can see that that part's working. Let's go back to our scenes and let's just kind of poke around our scenes directly. So let's start with chat. Chat seems to be a bit of a hit or miss type app. So let's just kind of load it up. Getting a bug. I think it's because we're not logged in. Some of these screens require that you be logged in. I think chat's one of them because it tries to pull your name to build an object to connect to. So that appears to be working though for the most part. Community is the one that's important. The other stuff's not so much. So you just want to come in here. Don't click on chat because that'll just load that screen. You won't be able to get back out. That appears to be working. Social. That appears to be working. Probably need to add your guys' projects to this as well. This appears to be working. This will probably be updated anyway and adjusted. This definitely, all this stuff needs to be reworked in the new core system. But again, we're just testing. We're just making sure the stuff works. When we click on this, is it going to take me to his channel? Yes, it does. Great. It's Facebook. Yep, that loads just fine. Takes us right to our Facebook. LinkedIn's probably going to be the same thing. Is the news working? Yes, here's the latest version. I probably need to add a new news feed, but it appears to be working. Yeah, you can read the news, which is good. What events do we have going on? Oh, we got the Game Johns. That's working because that's pulling from the database. Promotional code, is that working? Appears to be. I don't have any codes available. Submissions. Here's the applications. I just want to check streamer because this is the common one. That looks right. That looks right. Looks good. I mean, this is a little off over here, but again, that could be adjusted in the editor. Exit out of there. And again, it just takes us back to main menu. So we have to start over again. Here's that suggestion you had asked about. All right, so community appears to be working. Next thing we want to do is go into contact support. Oh, we already went in there. Create account, we already tested. Error, can't really test. So help, we want to test. So help is pretty static except for the game part. So whatever your game has, and we'll go over that too, you'll want to adjust that portion, but the rest of this is pretty static. And this needs a makeover as well. It's kind of showing it. Making sure though that it's working, which it appears to be. So let's go ahead and take a look at game real quick, because this is going to mostly apply to you. So in the game, there's sections. In this case, this is Lost in Outer Spaces, I think, because that was the one I was using for sample. So you want to give a big overview of your game in here, and this just kind of acts as pages. Again, this will be updated to where we'll have a scroll bar instead of paging. I'm not sure if paging is more mobile friendly. Um, I don't know. We'll kind of have to discuss that, you and I, to decide like what's more mobile friendly, because desktop friendly is friendly to everybody, but mobile friendly is what really matters. So we'll have to figure that one out. So, and again though, here's where you'd put your overview of the game. It's static per game, of course. Objectives of the game. Lost in Outer Space doesn't have a whole lot of objectives, so I mean, I just kind of threw it in there. Again, not like the best way of doing it, but this is how I did it. Player, again, just kind of like rotating through the characters. You probably want to have a lot more in depth than what I did for Lost in Outer Space, just because Lost in Outer Space was such a small game. The enemies, I just listed the enemies. Again, you probably have way more lore than I do, so you want to add more, and then miscellaneous stuff. All right, again, appears to be working. Looks great. Privacy policy, not really going to go into that. I mean, I think it will run. Let's take a look. I don't think you have to be logged in. Yeah, appears to be working, as you can see. This was bugged before. Now it's been fixed. So you always want to check that. Purchase. Yeah, so when you're doing your game, you'll want to update this image right here, so it uses yours and not Lost in Outer Space. And I'll show you how to do that as well. That's just in the scene right here. And you just, I preserved the aspect, so you just put your image there though, whatever it is for your game. Question recovery, never really deal a whole lot with that. Serial key, not anything really to do there. Settings, let's just check this real quick. Appears to be working. I can hear the sound. Controller, I guess I can test the keyboard because I don't have a I don't have anything on me or my controller connected. So appears to be working though, clearly. I'm not logged in, obviously, so it's not going to be able to pull my email or anything like that. Let's test the audio test. Yes, it's playing. Test the audio plus. No? Okay, good. Yeah, working. Everything works there. Obviously, it did what it's supposed to do. It redirect me if I'm not logged in. Slash we know is working. The rest of the stuff I'm assuming works. Let's just test terms of service real quick. Make sure it's pulling. Make sure it's readable. It is. Okay, so that's the core system overview. So let's go back to our code real quick. Let's just spend some time here real quickly on what some of this stuff is. So I've kind of sectioned the config file out. So does your game require a serial key? Basically, are you charging for your game or not? So to download the game is always free, but you have to buy a serial key to unlock it. So that's basically what this is about. Do you need a serial key to play this game? What is your product name? What is your product serial key name, which doesn't really apply anymore, and I can show you why just a second. The application version, this is pulling from Unity, which is what product will be doing with product as well. This is about to get updated as well, to where it'll just pull from the enum to determine if it's Windows, Linux, whatever. We use that in certain cases, not used a whole lot, so it's not super important. This is just copyright, probably never changes. Target scene, again, this is pretty static. I'll show you where this is used. The OAuth, you probably want to create an OAuth custom username and password for your apps individually, specifically. And what this is in the event that somebody obtains access to our API through the game and starts, doing bad stuff to our database. What we can do is we can just go in here and we can just disable this username and password, and then now that person no longer has access to the API. Now, the crap side of that is that now we force all of our players to have to re-download a new version that has a new key. But that's just the way it is currently built. In the future, we'll have patching set up and we'll have updates to where they wouldn't have to download a whole new version in the event of a security breach. But for right now, this is what we have for security. And again, security is something me and Aaron are talking about that we're going to start tightening on the next core update. So that'll probably get addressed. Next thing is, this is just the link to get the product key or the serial key on the website. It comes into play on here where you say purchase online. This will not apply in the White Box Gaming Core 1.3 because we'll be doing in-app purchasing. And right now we have to rely on the website, but eventually this will go away. But it is there currently, so you do have to set that up. When we build the web page, you'll have to put that in there, and unfortunately it's hard-coded currently. Hence config file. Application submission. I don't remember what that's about. Oh yeah, okay. So these are just set up within the app later on. So we'll go over this stuff later. TOS is terms of service. That had to be broken up because it's so big. So I just created these static files so it could be basically almost acting like an array, but I don't like using an array. So I just did it this way instead of using an array. All right, user config. So this is intentionally left empty. So this gets built from the API, from the database side. So when a user enters the email that they think is their account email, it will build these values in the app on the fly for us. And that's a security feature because we wouldn't want that information stored statically. And not that we could store it statically anyway, because every user is going to have a different question and answer and token. So that's why it's here, though, so it can be accessed globally. Server config. So this is kind of important. So our website address, as far as I can see, will never change. So that'll probably remain static till the end of time. However, our endpoint is how you connect to the API. So right now I'm connected to production. So anything I do will affect production. And I'm only working with the live API, not my local API. So here's the local connection if you want to connect locally, and I can show you again in the next video how to set that up. Next thing, this is just a check. This gets set during the login process to just say, are you logged in? Because a lot of screens I like to do a check. If you're not logged in, I want to redirect you back to the login screen. And I usually set this up at the very last thing that I do. Because when you're starting out, you need to load screens and you don't want to have to go through the whole login process to get to a screen when you're testing. So this is probably one of the last things that I set up for the screens. It just does a check on the start to say, are you logged in, yes or no? If you're not, redirect them back to the login. So it can enforce the login policy. And then this is just the login, which just captures your email and password. And this is for the White Box Gaming 4, meaning 4.0 .NET framework. We'll go over that stuff again in the next video. Same thing here. We're on White Box Gaming user version 5. So there's been 4 other versions. This is the latest version, I believe. So this is all the information that we're collecting when you log in, which we don't collect city, state, zip, and all this stuff anymore. We did initially, but then we found out that we ran into some issues with people's personal information. So we weren't in any violation, but we could have been, so we just stopped collecting it. We didn't really need it anyway because we're not physically mailing you copies, so we just don't use it anymore. All right, so now we're on to the chat stuff. So the chat's pretty basic. It's just the socketing server type chat system. Just grabs the message and the chat user, which uses the account object, which we can go into that. So that's just grabbing your ID, your email, your handle, your active title. This is basically like another type of login because the chat system is designed to be independent. So that's the config file. Pretty important when you're setting up, doing your initial setup, that you go through here and that you put in here like whatever it is that you need on your initial setup of the game. So that's pretty much the config file, and that's pretty important. So next thing we'll go over real quickly is our inventory system. So this file is basically a massive list of all the White Box Gaming items available in all of our games. Now, I have a note here, obviously, that I need to adjust my coins to be to pull from somewhere else, but I haven't done that yet, so I think I need to uncomment that out. Or no, wait, I'm sorry, I do need to leave that commented out. So the WBG coins do not go into the inventory currently. Currently, when you log in, they pull from your account. And let me show you that real quick. We'll switch back to the config file. And I'll show you what I'm talking about and why I want to switch it over to inventory instead of the config. So if we go back into our user, here's where the coins are currently stored. They're on this property, or this object. This WBG coins are stored here currently for this particular object. And they're stored within the user class. And it's really an inventory item, so eventually I want to switch it over to being an inventory item. The problem is when we do that, we have to do that for all games at once, or work some magic to where we can slowly integrate them all to the inventory and get it out of your account. So that'll be interesting. It's not hard. It'll just, take some time. But for now, just know that your coins are tied to your account and not your inventory. So in your case, how this relates to you is any new items that you introduce, which I know that you have like the crystals and stuff, anything that's like craftable or that goes into an inventory needs to be in here. And I believe all these are just longs and booleans for the most part, which means that we just capture the count of those items, how many you have. We use longs just because inventory, I think an int stops at like 2 billion and something. Not likely that a player would get over 2 billion of one item, but just in case we use a long instead, just in case they get over that amount and it would cause an error. So we just want to avoid that error. Recipes are just bools, true or false. So when they unlock something or they buy a recipe or whatever, we're just simply unlocking it and allowing them to use it. But this is the inventory system, the basic setup of it, of how it works and how we track everything. And then, what is this? This is an unused file. What is this? Game functions. Okay. So this is game functions. I was building a chat at one point and I wanted to filter out words. This is our word filter. I don't think I ever actually used this. Well, I think we used this on create account. So, but I didn't really add a whole lot to it. So what it does is it checks your string to see if it contains any of these things. And if it does, it removes them with an empty string. Basically, I need to update this list, though, because there's a lot more swear words and offensive words that I need to add to the list that get filtered out. There's a lot more dangerous things that you could be adding in your handles and things like that that could be dangerous. So we just, just something that I got to maintain and, add on to. But just know that it's here and it does, edit stuff. This is just a clean string, and it's in the game functions class. So if you ever need to use this, just create a new instance of it and just clean a string. It's very useful. I just don't utilize it that much because I've got the core system set up now, and I don't really need to do that once it's set up once. All right, so here is kind of like the backbone of the inventory system. So this builds our player inventory. So what you'll do is you'll make a call to the database or the API to request that player's inventory, and then you'll call this function and you'll pass in that data table that returned, and this will set all those values for you for that player inventory, and that way you don't have to do it. Now, when you add new items, of course, you have to add them in here, of course, and they're by name. But once you get that set up, that's it. And you can kind of see the pattern. It's pretty easy to follow when you're adding new stuff because it's already kind of done for you. But this is just how you add new items and you tie it to their account. And it also has a save in here that's already baked in. So like here's the update inventory. This is just basically acting as the save. So you'd want to add it here too. So when they're doing an update, because this will build that, so you just want to add that in here. This is grayed out because I plan on doing a crafting system at some point where, well, never mind, that doesn't really apply. I can't remember why I grayed that out. I graded out. Okay, here's what I was thinking of as well. Yeah, here's the update. So when you want to do an update, you'll have to build the object, the player object, the inventory object specifically. So you'll have to call this function to build it, and it'll return that inventory object, and then that's what you'll actually send to the API to perform the actual update. I think. Okay, yeah, this is what you call to update the local inventory. Okay, I'm sorry. I should have read. Reading is fundamental. So when a player gets an item from a drop, this is the function that you'll call to add it to their inventory. So you just send in the item name and then the amount that you want to add to their inventory. And again, it's all pre-set up. Whatever item is, just throw it in there. And then here's the actual random item drop system. So when you want to call, if you want a random item to drop, you can just call this function and it will return the item that dropped. And it will automatically add the item to the player's inventory for you. It'll find whatever sound effect that needs to be played for that particular item, whatever's already been predefined. It'll add it to their inventory, and then it'll just return the item name to you to let you know, hey, this player received this item. Which, if you look at Lost in Outer Space, when you go over the boxes, that's what this is doing. It's just returning that name. That, hey, this is the random item that was dropped, and I just display the name. So that's if you want to do random items. And then here is the store. Again, this is going to be revamped. This is going to be under construction in our next update. We'll probably keep this system because it actually works really well. But again, just something to review. And then here's how Unity communicates, even though this doesn't work because you can't call subroutines within the within a functions class type. You have to call it within, it's funky. I'll show you some other time. But this is basically how you called an API. This is an API call, just a sample. And you would call this via coroutine. You'll get used to it. I just copy and paste them as I need them. But yeah, that's the inventory system. Again, kind of like the heart and soul stuff. Here's scripts. There's lots of pre-made scripts already. Some of this stuff is honestly just junk. It's kind of leftover remnants. But this is all the White Box Gaming Core stuff. Some of it's useful, some of it's not. I believe the message box needs to be updated on this because it doesn't draw correctly. And that's an issue I fixed once, but then I had to break it. So sometimes, you fix things and just, whatever happens. Here's all of our GUI stuff, just like our standard GUI stuff. Again, subject to updates. Here is these, which again, probably you'll want to use your own, and you can delete these for whatever game you're building. This is just the defaults that you get when you import, just for sample. All right, so that's pretty much the White Box Gaming Core system. Feel free to ask me any questions about it on the setup, but it's pretty easy. It's just really big. It's just really scaled up. There's just a lot there, but there's only a few actual systems that are pretty core to it. So you'll kind of, as you work with it, you'll kind of get used to it, and it'll start to make sense to you. The next tutorial, we're going to go into more detail about the core system and how to actually add to it beyond Unity and actually start interacting with the API and start storing data in the cloud. And that's when it'll really make sense to you and be like, okay, I get it. So if you're a little get confused right now, don't worry. It's probably normal. It'll make sense once we finish the next tutorial.